You are listening to the CAD Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CAD Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CAD Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim Coppinger, and with me, as always, is my troublemaking partner.
I make trouble?
You make trouble. Tell him your name.
Rocco.
Rocco. You think. See? You see the trouble you make? You don't even know your own name. I have to remind you to tell people your name. You know, you're why we can't have nice things. I'm just saying. You're always causing trouble for me. It's what you do. So
I try.
You try. You do a good job. In that respect, you're really aces. All right. So today, what are we talking about? Oh, so today we're talking about CAD in the cloud. All right. We're talking about the feasibility of working with CAD in the cloud. All right. So like I said, so today we're going to talk about using the cloud and how it relates to the CAD world. And it's really kind of a touchy subject for a lot of folks. And I think that a lot of that is based on some misunderstanding of what we really mean when we say the cloud. I think, most folks in this day and age understand the cloud as being a web-based hosting solution. It lets you access and edit files from, any computer, anywhere, anytime. And ideally you can have, multiple employees or clients or, whoever the project stakeholders are on your job reviewing, editing, and discussing the same version of any file. And that's a great concept. And believe me, I believe that everyone needs to be using cloud-based services. It's vital in this day and age. But in the CAD world, there's still this lingering fear of the cloud that I think has kept a lot of AEC firms from using it in a large-scale way. And I think that fear is really one of control. I think that designers and engineers worry about their proprietary data being out there in the world, and they also worry that letting other people have uncontrolled editing capability of those files puts them at professional risk, right? So in other words, they don't want the client's secretary Julie, moving her office in their new design because she wants more sun in the afternoon, and she's moving that without anybody knowing, right? And I think that's what's going to happen, and I don't think that's the case. So I think that's one item, and I think that there is also a misunderstanding over the cloud because it really comes in between what are really two distinct methodologies. There's cloud-based file hosting and there's cloud-based file collaboration. And a lot of folks in this industry tend to think of the cloud in terms of the first, right? Just simple file hosting. They're working with systems like Dropbox or ShareFile or something along those lines, and they're thinking that they're in the cloud. They're working in the cloud, but those are really just file sharing sites, right? They're really just essentially servers on the web, to put it in a very basic way. And when you're dealing with cloud-based workflows for CAD, you're really dealing with a much more robust set of tools that are meant for full-scale collaboration, and shared design spaces, shared tools, shared processes. And I think that even folks who understand the difference between file sharing and cloud-based collaboration are still a little bit panicked by the idea of that second concept. They have a lot of concern over how CAD-based items like external references and data shortcuts or linked files or centralized models are going to be impacted in a truly collaborative environment. Right? So Rocco, let's start with basic file sharing, right? In the CAD community and the folks that we deal with, right? So we're Microsoft partners. And we do a lot of work setting folks up in SharePoint and Teams for just basic file sharing. What's the overall feel that you get from folks when we start talking to them about moving to the cloud and file hosting structures? Right? What are the big concerns you see?
I don't know that there's so much a concern as it is more so how do they get it done, who's going to do it, whether they have the time to do it, but it's...
We can do it.
we definitely can do it,
We can.
and it's not a matter of just marketing ourselves here, right? I mean, it's the benefit that these solutions bring, right? Um, that's important, but I think that's the biggest question that comes up. The time involved, who's going to do it, how complex is it?
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's really a big jump there for them, right? Like I said, you're coming out of their standard environments, and you and I were talking earlier today, right? That there are still a lot of folks out there who are working on servers, right? Who are a little out of date here, like 10 years ago, still working on localized servers and setting up VPNs and things like that.
oh yeah,
Um,
I see it.
yeah, so it's a big change to them to move from that internal structure where they feel secure, and the reality is they're not. They're actually far less secure on a localized server environment, and they're spending a lot more money on that. But to move that out into working with SharePoint and Teams, for their file sharing and hosting, because they just feel like they're losing control. So when we talk about systems like SharePoint and Teams, they're both Microsoft products, and really they're both a little bit of a hybrid between those two areas I was talking about earlier. And because they've got a little bit of file hosting and they've got a little bit of collaboration, and it seems to be, to my mind, a really successful way of moving your firm towards the cloud and into the cloud. All right, because both Teams and SharePoint, they provide the file hosting, but they do have some really nice extended collaboration tools. And even some communication tools. So all of that is really focused primarily around the Microsoft Office platform and their related apps. Though, to be fair, I do want to point out that the AutoCAD web portal, right, the AutoCAD online stuff, it does now integrate directly into Microsoft Teams, right? So you can enable that tab in there. It's an active app in the blended Teams environment.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that's really important for people.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just the fact that you'll be able to, open and access and comment and share files through that web platform right inside of Teams with people who don't even have AutoCAD. That's huge, right? That's a real, real big benefit. And I think that, like I said, that online AutoCAD web, it's a really good entry point for CAD folks into that more collaborative end of the cloud experience. Like I said, when you're dealing in the CAD, it's not just about hosting the design files, but it's about allowing different people to open them and edit them and comment on them in real time, right? So you're either going to do that as a co-author, right, where we can both go in and modify the same file and we can see what's happening, what each of us are changing in real time, right? Or at the very least, you can do it with dynamic updates and notifications. Right, those are little pop-ups that come up and say, hey, Rocco just modified the drawing. Here's what he did. Do you want to load his changes? Jim added some comments and some thoughts about, your design and so on. Right, and that's really important. That's that entry point. Right, and when you start to move up from there and you start to get into systems like the Autodesk A360, right, or the Brixis 24/7 cloud platforms, they're designed specifically for use with the CAD infrastructure and the CAD models. Right, they're meant to be centralized work environments, right, designed specifically with CAD in mind. Right, and they work much better than a simple file host. Even the better ones like SharePoint and Teams and so on, because these are really meant to address the external links, the reference files, the high-end images, the BIM models, right, that CAD systems use, and they handle those much more efficiently, right, than anything under just like a native file sharing. And like you said, while these can be handled for most CAD systems, right, you can deal with things like XREFs and basic structures on SharePoint or Teams or whatever. If you're going to do that, and then we do that for a lot of our clients, it's not a bad thing, but it does require a little bit of setup. It requires some management, and it also requires you to depend a little bit on your end users, setting the drawings up correctly and linking correctly. And let's face it, no manager ever wants to trust their end users to do things the correct way. Right? Nobody trusts anybody in this world. So let me ask you this, Rocco. Are you finding that there are a lot of people who are interested in or even already using the collaborative cloud environments for CAD at this point?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag, right? I mean, I often say smaller firms are a little bit more behind, but the larger firms are using the tools like you say, A360, BIM 360, the Brixis 24/7. So it's all over the map.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, from my standpoint, like, because I talk to folks more on terms of the tech and the application of it. Like I said, I just think a lot of people don't really understand the differences between these environments and the potential benefits that they bring to the table for them. I think that in a lot of times when I have these conversations, I think the focus is on potential problems, right? And then people want to avoid moving to the cloud because they're not sure how it's going to work out, and is it going to slow them down, and is it going to cause a problem. And I think that in the busy construction and design environment we've seen over the last few years, I just think people are so worried about downtime, they're not even really willing to have that conversation, or they'll brush up against it and be like, yeah, that's something for down the road. They're just so worried, that they're going to, lose some production time when they're so far behind already because they're so busy.
Or that they're going to lose data, and they're really not. I mean, I've yet to run into a customer that has lost data as a result of moving to the cloud.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? Like I was saying earlier, people think that they're more secure and trusted when they're we're backing up our servers internally. You're at much greater risk. Your backups fail. You're not patching. You're not updating your security settings. You have a much greater chance of power outages and failures and complete, catastrophic system failures on a server than you do in the cloud. The cloud, everything is replicated across 20 different sites across the whole world. Your data is much more secure out in the cloud than it has ever been on your local server. And that's just a common misconception we run up against. It's a great point. All right, so we're going to take a break here to hear from today's sponsor. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the specific cloud services for CAD and how you can make use of those. All right, we'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call podcast. All right, so today's podcast is brought to you by no one other than Zentech Consultants. Rocco and I, we're sponsoring ourselves. Aren't we special, Rocco? We get to sponsor ourselves.
A lot of special.
We're a lot of special. So today we wanted to talk to you guys about getting yourself set up in both Microsoft SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. When it comes to getting your company moved into the cloud and working along those lines, it's always a struggle to know where to start, how to get set up, and how to customize and structure things to your specific workflows. But luckily here at Zentech, we have 2 Kickstart programs that are designed to help you get exactly that decision made in the most effective way possible. So Rocco, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about our Kickstart programs?
Yeah, they're designed to help you get set up, configured, and even include some training for one flat fee. So feel free to hit our website, zentechconsultants.net. Give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, look at you, sounding like a professional announcer. All right, folks, we'll talk to you soon. All right, welcome back to the Cattle Call podcast. Okay, so we're back and we're talking today about CAD in the cloud. All right, so as always, Rocco, we're going to go and see what the maths have to say about this topic. So I do my interweb research, and I went to IDC, Gartner, and Sky High. All right, and here's what we found out about just general cloud use in the AEC world. Okay, so for 11 years straight, cloud technology has been on Gartner's top 10 tech trends, meaning it's still one of the fastest, every year over year, it's still one of the fastest growing things out there. Right? As of 2018, over 1/3 of all software in the world was cloud-based, meaning that it uses that as its primary interface and drive. Right? Cloud-based systems account for $50.8 billion with a B, all right, in revenue in the U.S. alone every year. That's a lot of numbers. Why don't we get more of those numbers, Rocco? You're not working hard enough. I need those numbers. My bank account doesn't have numbers like that. I need those. So, all right. So the average number of cloud-based apps in use at a standard design firm have tripled, right, since 2013. That means that the average AEC user has to access 36 different cloud services regularly in their work. That's a lot. Yeah. Right? 71% of cloud services in the AEC industry are still internally focused. Right? That means that less than 30% are public facing, where you're working with people outside your company. Right? And only 18% of the data that people upload to the cloud contains what they consider sensitive data, which in our community usually means they're not uploading their designs. Only 80% of the design information is being loaded to the cloud. That's crazy, right? Those are huge numbers, and we're just not using this system the way that it's meant to be used. So, Rocco, do you have a lot of cloud-based, cloud-oriented discussions with clients? I mean, are they going that way, or are they still just hesitant and dragging their heels, like the numbers here seems to say?
Yeah, I think a lot are still behind. I mean, that's basically a good word. It's taken time. There's still the fear of moving to the cloud. But like we were saying before, I've yet to run into a customer that's lost data on the cloud. So it's certainly taken time.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's more the fear of lost data, or maybe it's just like I said, that fear of downtime?
Um, it could be a combination of both.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's one of those things I'm still trying to pin down. I talk to people all the time, right? So, I mean, we can see, right, there's a huge industry here, right? But, like we said, there's just a lot of people in this AAC world that are still really cautious about using it, right? And like I said, it's not even so much about the sensitivity of our data, I think, right? Because we're not always dealing with, it's not, high-end Department of Defense secure data and personal information that we're putting out here. We're really talking about the designs, right? And they're not putting those designs up there because, like I said earlier, I think people are still really worried about the security of the design information itself, right? I think there's still this paranoia, all right, about your competitors or an unscrupulous client is going to steal your intellectual property and go build a building or do the site without you. Okay, and that's just not the case, right? It's too, in this day and age, it's too easy to track that and do it. So nobody's doing that. I think that's a very overblown concern. All right. So with that, let's talk about some of the CAD based cloud systems, right? And what we've been seeing used and what their positives and negatives are. All right. So we talked earlier, Rocco. We were talking about SharePoint and Teams, which we work with a lot. And I think it's a great overall project hosting structure, right? You can even use these for communications and meetings as well as hosting. So it really becomes a really nice centralized portal for working with people outside of your office, or even if they're like upstairs and you're downstairs, right? You don't want to walk up and down the stairs all day. These type of systems, they work on the CAD side, SharePoint and Teams, which are essentially the same in terms of file storage. They work with the CAD. Right, as long as you're careful with how you connect to and path any of your reference files. All right, they work just fine for at least those basic 2D and basic 3D CAD structures. I will give you the warning here on the negative side that SharePoint and Teams is a definite no-go. If you're working in a system that has a shared central model like Revit does, you're definitely not going to want to use that. It's too broadly focused from a business standpoint to handle all the BIM features and the detailed design information that you'd be passing back and forth on a consistent basis. You can cheat it. You can make it work. I've tried it, and it's just a disaster waiting to happen. So if you're working in that BIM structure, SharePoint and Teams is not the way for you to go. Okay? So next on my list here, I've got Autodesk, the A360, right? Which honestly is really... it's the best option if you're working in just a basic AutoCAD type environment with 2D and you're looking to, share and communicate about your files in an online version where everybody can see it, even without CAD. It's got its own built-in 2D and 3D viewers that run right inside your web browser. It's got some nice little markup tools. And if people do have CAD, it'll even let you co-author a little bit on the CAD files. It's even got some recently added metadata tools for adding properties, so you can start tracking things like revisions and RFI numbers. And the real benefit with this is that it's free with most of your Autodesk subscriptions. Right, so it's definitely worth trying out if you haven't gone down that route yet. It's a great entry point. Okay, so next up on my list here is I've got Autodesk BIM 360. And this is the premier and to my mind probably the only tool for dealing with Autodesk-based BIM models, right? From Revit or Inventor Fusion 360. Yep, it's pricey. It's not cheap. It's costing you $500 annually per user.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's not cheap. It's not. But it really is the best way for keeping those advanced BIM models and data actively synced. Right? It allows for full co-authoring and work sharing in a really effective way for all of your Autodesk models. Okay, and I stress Autodesk because honestly, it's a lot less welcoming on other file types or other CAD systems. Right? It's not really going to work well with anything other than those Autodesk-based models. Like I said, so it's got a little price tag to it, but for what it does it better than anything else. Next up, I have the Brixis 24/7 platform, which is a really powerful tool that is designed from the ground up for design and construction projects both. It handles both sides, which is nice. Right? The other products we talked about don't. It comes with full notification security, edit tracking tools, and it even has built-in processes for automation. In other words, you can automate approval and review workflows so it passes file control from one person to another as needed. So as I review and approve something, it can automatically be passed over to you, signed out to you for notification and check and review and approvals. You can push it through whole workflow processes. It also lets you give access to unlimited partners who don't even need to own their own 24/7 license to access and view and mark up and comment on files, which is really nice. This one, little drawback here is that it isn't free either. Right, but the price point I think is a lot better, right? So with Brixis 24/7, it's $700 a year, but that's a team-based structure. For that $700, you can have 20 users with full 24/7 access, right? So it's not crazy expensive. It's certainly much more affordable than the Autodesk option, But there is a little bit of a fee. But it really, like I said, unlike the others, it does have that built-in design and construction workflow. So I think it's a lot more robust and versatile in that respect. So I'm a big fan of that one. And I guess the last two, there's really two of them. They kind of go together in my mind. There's ProjectWise from Bentley, right, and Autodesk Volt, right, and I've done quite a lot of work over the years in both of those. And the truth of it is that neither of them are true cloud-based systems. What they really are document management systems that they've adapted and added cloud access to over the years as like add-ons. These are pretty expensive systems. They're meant for like enterprise control and management of documents. They do require a lot of setup and a good bit of training for your end users. But if you got genuine concerns, like we've worked with clients in the past in these systems who are dealing with pharmaceutical, government regulation, Department of Defense contract, where security and structure and accountability is vital. Right, this is the way to go if that's really where you are. That has a lot of broad appeal to folks. Right, you get that same benefit of having a single source file, but you also get unlimited metadata and controls and workflow processing and revisioning and tracking of life cycles, which is great. The big drawback, right, is like I said, number one, the prices are extreme. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars here. And they heavily restrict any type of collaboration and co-authoring. It's not how these systems are designed to work because it blows up their tracking and accountability process. So you're going to be very limited in that respect if you go those ways. But they are good systems if that's what you need. So Rocco, there's my list. All right. So out of the ones we talked about, which ones do you most commonly see, if any, that our clients are working with?
On the AC side, it's really BIM 360. On the manufacturing side, it's Autodesk Vault.
Okay, yeah, because the Vault ties directly into like that whole inventor workspace structure in terms of keeping catalogs and so on. So even on a production level in house, it's a very important thing for those inventor users to use. So yeah, I can definitely see that. So okay, all right. So, but there it is, right? So CAD and the cloud are perfect partners, so long as you're willing to do a little bit of research, right? Prep your systems, prep your users, and you need to understand that the cloud is really a much more secure setup than what you think you have in-house. Those old school concerns about keeping your data in-house, that leads you to isolated work silos. It leads to duplicate files, so you're working on things that are out of date. which can cause all kinds of contractual and money concerns. You can even just lose information totally. All right, every one of those leads to a slowdown on your projects and a loss of money when you're working locally. The digital world today is fully integrated. It's collaborative. It's accessible at all times, and that's what it needs to be. Right? The truth of the matter is that the AEC world is always behind the tech curve. So don't let it leave you so far behind that you become a museum piece. Right? Everybody should be
like
moving,
Jim.
like me. Well, I'm just ancient. I'm fossilized at this point. So there's just no hope for me. Right? We can't all be 15, Rocco. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. That was your mental age. I get confused. So to sum it up, right, everybody should be moving to the cloud for all of their CAD work today. Whichever system you need, doesn't matter. You should all be moving towards the cloud. So with that said, I think we can go ahead and wrap up today. And thank you guys for joining us. And we look forward to talking to you all on our next Cattle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.